Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Boy, I almost wore a similar color today, so good thing I didn't. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'll be signing House Bill 209, which does a number of things. We know that our tax structure in Hawaii, because so much of the income to provide the services that the state provides to our community is driven and raised to the general excise tax. So we know that the general excise tax does take a bigger portion of those who can least afford it, and is probably not the best thing to do. And so we do look toward trying to find ways that we can balance that and seek more income for the state government from those who can afford to pay more. House Bill 209 does exactly that. We are establishing an earned income tax credit. It also reinstates the food and excise tax credit for those who earn the least to get a credit against excise taxes paid for food. And finally, it increases the income taxes on those who can afford to pay more in income tax. The intent of this legislation is to help Hawaii's low and moderate income families keep more of what they earn. It's currently estimated that the lowest income households pay 13% of their income to state and local taxes, while those in the top income brackets pay less than 8%. This is because of, as I said, how general excise tax is applied and how much of our revenues is generated by the general excise tax. And so I really do think that this measure helps a little to reduce the cost of living, especially for those earning the least income. And with that, I'd like to introduce Representative Johansson to say a few words.
Thanks. This is a big win and a big victory for Hawaii's working class. When I first ran for office, I never forgot a conversation I had with a constituent in Aiea. It was probably the most direct conversation I've ever had with a constituent. She's a single mom. She works, but she takes care of her children. She also takes care of her elderly parents. And exasperated when I introduced myself and said, happy to help or have any questions or concerns. She said, "What are you going to do for me? I can barely afford to make a living, and I can barely afford to survive." And it was stunning and awkward because I didn't have a very good answer at the time. And it's precisely because of what the governor said. Hawaii's working poor pay some of the highest taxes in the nation per capita and by share. What this bill does, and is so significant, is it alleviates a lot of that burden through a measure that is implementable by the state. My constituent is not alone. All of our members in the House and Senate know these folks. They have these stories, and they share these concerns, which is why today we're so grateful to the governor for enacting this into law. Also grateful to Chairs Luke and Tokuda from a budgetary perspective for making this happen. To the Women's Legislative Caucus and to members of the Senate and the House, thank you for your political courage and your will to effectuate this into policy. To the advocates, thank you for your tireless, continuing work for people who need advocacy the most. This is equivalent to $130 million over 6 years for Hawaii's working families, and many of those claimants can claim an extra $110 for the refundable food excise tax credit at these higher, now permanent rates. So this is a win, not just for that constituent, but it's an answer that many of us can now give to the people that we do care about from a policy perspective, that there's meaningful change occurring at the legislature that will meaningfully impact their lives for the better. So thank you to everybody who made this bill happen today for all of our constituents who need it the most.
Legislators can certainly come up and join us. Everybody has to get cozy. House Bill 209, House Draft 1, Senate Draft 1, Conference Draft 1, a bill for an act relating to taxation. Is now law in the state of Hawaii is Act 107.